Yes! Oh, it is. It is Friday episode, my friends. A little bit late, dollar short, but here we are, my friends. You can see the wristband I have on. I was out at the Miami Crypto Experience downtown Miami, soaking up some crypto knowledge. So we had to start the show a little bit late today. I'm very happy about the Miami Dolphins last night, especially that play. Robert Hunt, legend. I mean, he scores a touchdown that's not actually a touchdown. It didn't count. Offensive linemen have no business catching screens, catching anything if they're not declared eligible, which he wasn't. But as far as penalties go, that was the most fun penalty the Miami Dolphins have committed all season. We'll get into that. Miami Dolphins, I'm still stunned. I'm actually stunned that the Dolphins came away with a 22-10 victory last night. I know that a lot of the headlines are being stolen by Tua Tagovailoa, and it is a great story right now. But last night's victory, it didn't have nearly as much to do with Tua or with Jalen Waddle or Albert Wilson as it did with that defense. That Miami Dolphins defense was savage last night. We'll get into it. We'll get into the continuing slump for one number 55 with the Miami Heat. I'm getting to that point where I might stop speaking his name. I'm just going to call him number 55. Our guys from the extra yard would always do that with Jakeem Grant when he used to be a Dolphin. They just refer to him as 19. Didn't bother to say his name. Now I guess that he's traded. He's in Chicago. He's their problem now. They might speak his name now, but I might have to do that with Dunk. Number 55. Guys, we are brought to you, as always, by our great partners, the Quarterdeck Seafood Bar and Neighborhood Grill. This is your spot, guys. I love this sports bar. The Quarterdeck, they've been like a member of my family for the last 10 years plus. They've been with me on my shows. It's the best place to watch every game. You head out to the Quarterdeck on a Saturday for college football. We got Miami, Florida State tomorrow. That is a big one, my friends. Go out there for NFL Sundays. You don't have to worry about the Dolphins this week. Just go out there, kick your feet up, watch all these other teams beat up on each other. You go out there on a college football Saturday and NFL Sunday at the Quarterdeck. Take advantage of the 5 for $15 ice-cold buckets of Heineken Light, Amstel Light, High Noon Hard Seltzer, or mix and match those to your heart's content. The Quarterdeck has the freshest seafood. My God, the fresh mahi-mahi. It is so good. The buffalo shrimp is my favorite appetizer. The oysters and Maine lobster are right out of the ocean, bros. I love the sushi. I love to build my own poke bowl at the Quarterdeck. The sandwiches and burgers are awesome if you're not feeling like seafood. Guys, wet your whistle with the 2-for-1 drinks. 2-for-1 happy hour is all day, every day. Watch the game and watch the fights out there, guys. They have every UFC pay-per-view fight at the Quarterdeck for zero cover charge. If you want to find the location nearest to you or peep their menu before you go, just visit them online at quarterdeckrestaurants.com. The Quarterdeck, come for the food, stay for the fun. Guys, we have an official sports book here on Donno Daily. I know some people who actually made money betting on the Miami Dolphins. How often has that happened this year? Hallelujah. Hallelujah. Guys, BetUS.com, America's favorite sports book, 3-decade leader. They're the mainstay in the industry. BetUS, it's like having Las Vegas in your pocket on your smartphone or on your computer. Full service sports book. They've got the best customer service. They've got the best bonuses in the industry. I've got a great bonus for you. Sign up at betus.com, and when you make your deposit, use our code 5RSN125. 5RSN125. That's going to get you a 125% sign-up bonus. If you deposit $100, they're going to give you $125 in free play money. BetUS.com. You can bet sports. They've got a casino right there on the site. You can play blackjack. You can play slots. You can make real money doing that. Bet on the horses, pop culture props even. They have odds on everything you can imagine. You bet, you win, you get paid. BetUS.com. We're going to be joined around 3:45 by one of our betting gurus. You can bet his picks at BetUS.com. Lee Sterling from ParamountSports.com is going to join us. I want to start the program with a shout-out. And before I start shouting out Dolphins players and Dolphins defensive players especially, I got to shout out our guy Chris Adams, one of our great viewers. I joked at his expense yesterday because Chris He sent us a message heading into Thursday Night Football. I thought the Dolphins were going to get shellacked. I thought the Dolphins were going to get embarrassed by the Baltimore Ravens. And Chris Adams is messaging us yesterday about how he's betting the Dolphins. He thinks we should buy the dip like you do with crypto and bet on the I asked him what drugs he was taking. I called the guy crazy. Who's crazy now? He said it right there. Hey, Donno, who's crazy now? Totally cleaned up on my bets last night. Congratulations, Chris. He says, I tried to get you to buy the dip with me. Love you, bro. Show's awesome. I appreciate that. I ended up not, believe it or not, I didn't place a single wager on that Dolphins game last night. And I probably showed some restraint because if I had placed a bet, I would have done certainly some Lamar Jackson props, overs that would not have come in. I probably would have bet the Ravens minus 8.5. So I showed some restraint. Sometimes it's the bets you don't make that end up being the best bets. But I wanted to throw Chris a shout out because he cleaned up and he was 100% right. And I had another one of my best buddies, Brian, was telling me yesterday that he really had a good feeling about the Dolphins winning that game because he thought that the Ravens were going to have a letdown game. They would take Miami lightly, night game at Hard Rock Stadium. I thought he was crazy as well. Turns out I'm the crazy one. Hello to Louis Sung. We have 2 generations of Louis Sung in the chat, by the way. He says, to comment on the title of this episode of Donno Daily. Because the title of the episode, Where Has This Dolphins Defense Been Hiding? This defense has been back since October 31st, he says, when Xavier Howard said they went back to the coverages that worked last season. Let's talk a little bit about what that defense was able to do last night. It was astounding in a good way, right? Because the Baltimore Ravens have a vaunted rushing attack, and they've got a quarterback in Lamar Jackson he is the definition of dual threat in the dictionary, Lamar Jackson. He routinely, by himself, will eclipse 100 rushing yards. The Miami Dolphins held Lamar Jackson to 39 rushing yards yesterday. They held the Baltimore Ravens as a team to 94 rushing yards, their lowest output of the season. Take a bow, Flo. And I know people don't want to hear me give Flo credit because the defense was so bad for the earlier part of the season. If I'm going to rip him when things aren't going right, when the defense starts playing well, I'm going to give the man credit where credit is due. Flo can take a bow for that performance. Jalen Phillips, who had a slow start to the year, looks like a monster. Take a bow. Andrew Van Ginkel, who had his best game of the season. He's starting to look like the Andrew Van Ginkel of 2020 now. Take a bow. Emmanuel Ogbah. And the guy who I thought was the MVP of that defense and probably the MVP of that game yesterday, Javon Holland. This is another thing because Lewis followed up his message with the real question at hand is what made the Dolphins decide to ever go away from that defense in the first place, that defense from last year. That's a tough question to answer. And I would probably need a PhD or to install bugs in the Dolphins coach's office to figure out what's going through their mind. What are they talking about? I don't know why they went away from those coverages last year, but I think a big part of the reason why they were confident enough to go back to it, where you started to see the Dolphins be a lot more aggressive, gamble a lot more, cover zero, big-time blitzes. They freaking bamboozled the Baltimore Ravens offense. Lamar Jackson looked like he just wanted to get the hell out of there. And he had like 10,000 relatives there watching him play because that stadium was full. He's a South Florida kid. That stadium was full. There were a lot of Ravens fans there. And even before the Lamar Jackson era, Ravens fans always travel well to Hard Rock Stadium. I've been to games during the Joe Flacco era, and there'd be a ton of Ravens fans there. But Lamar Jackson being what is he, a Boynton Beach kid or a Deerfield Beach kid? I always get those two mixed up. He had a ton of family members and friends in there, and it looked like he just wanted to get the hell out of that stadium and just go hang out with his relatives because he was under pressure. He was under duress. He was getting hit. Sometimes he was getting touched in ways that these officials, you noticed the referees last night. Thank God the Dolphins offense was able to respond after the Ravens scored that touchdown on that drive that was just bullshit refereeing. Absolute bullshit. You had, was it like 60 yards in Miami Dolphins penalties on that drive? And, you know, the first of those roughing the passers, it's so soft, but by the body weight rule, okay, fine. Javon Holland got called for a roughing the passer where he did not do anything. Like, he politely tapped Lamar Jackson on the shoulder and like gave him a little wave. They exchanged pleasantries, and then the referee's throwing a flag at him. Like, it was, I mean, I wish they could review calls because that was a criminal call. Justin Coleman also got called for a holding that was very questionable. So the Ravens were gifted a touchdown drive. Now, Mark Andrews is my fantasy tight end. He scored. So I wasn't as outraged about it as some people might have been, but that was absolute BS officiating on that drive to help the Ravens get into it. And now let's get into and what I was saying before I got myself a little bit sidetracked. I think one of the reasons why the Dolphins are confident to go back to some of those coverages from last year is just how much Javon Holland is thriving. I think Javon Holland, having figured so much out, I think he's really the key to bringing that defense back to 2020 form. He's been a big part of it because I thought he was the MVP of that game yesterday, and he is absolutely excelling right now. So I mentioned we have two generations of Lewis Sungs in the chat. We got Lewis Sung Jr. and Lewis Sung Sr. Hello, Mr. Sung. It's great to see you again. And he says, I am blown away by not just the win, but the manner in which they won. The whole mood of the stadium and team finally came alive when Tua took the helm. Mahalo, Tua, and congrats to all the team. So, yeah, I made sure to mention the defense first because the defense was the primary reason why the Dolphins won that game. But I was really happy for Tua Tagovailoa last night. And when he came in and the way that he was able to play, a clear upgrade over Jacoby Brissett, that's where you start to question Flo again. I gave Flo credit for the way the defense is playing. And like Lewis Sung Jr. pointed out, it wasn't just yesterday, right? You saw signs of that defense coming back to form against Buffalo 2 weeks ago in a game Miami did lose, but the defense looked a lot better. Then this past Sunday, the defense looked fantastic against Houston, but I didn't really know what to make of that because the Houston Texans offense is awful. So did I give more credit to the Dolphins defense, or did I say, well, it's just Houston? But then the defense goes out and performs the way that they did. Elite, disruptive, smothering against an offense like the Baltimore Ravens and just completely decapitated that Ravens offense. Now you have to say, okay, what happened at Buffalo was not a fluke. What happened against the Houston Texans, that was not a fluke. You're actually looking at a defense coming together and peaking, and I hope now the offense can take that next step as well. So it was crazy the way that this has played out the last two games. You know, Tua, he's had an injury. He's had an issue on his left throwing hand. He's had a fractured middle finger. Against Houston, he had practiced all week, albeit limited, went through warmups. Flo held him out, but kept him the backup. So essentially saying he's healthy enough to dress. He's healthy enough to stay off the inactive list, but he's going to be our backup, but he's not going to start. We're going to start Jacoby Brissett. And then you go through the same drill last night, right? Tua had been healthy enough to practice, even on a limited basis, had been healthy enough to warm up, to dress for the game, to serve as the backup, but not to start. And the explanation that Brian Flores kept throwing out there is because of the swelling on the left hand, the left middle finger, which is his throwing hand, can't grip the ball well enough, can't make all the throws. So if he can't make all the throws, he's not going to start. But what drives me insane, two things that drive me insane, and I probably went insane long ago, being a lifelong Miami Dolphins fan. First of all, this offense by design, and I think by necessity because of the offensive line, how often do they actually go deep? That's number one. And then number two is you're telling me Tua can't start because he can't make all the throws. Well, even at 100%, Jacoby Brissett can't come anywhere near making all the throws. What was it, about a half dozen throws he one-hopped off the turf yesterday? Jacoby Brissett is having an awful year. Worse than I expected he would. Right? I mean, we had a feeling he would be a downgrade from Ryan Fitzpatrick, but veteran backup, has had some good moments as a spot starter in the NFL. I really thought Jacoby Brissett would look more reliable under center. The times he's been called into duty this year, he's been really, really bad. And like Mr. Sung said, You saw the energy change. You saw the effectiveness of the offense change. And like, I'm not saying Tua had an incredible game last night. I mean, it wasn't an incredible performance, but if you can't tell the difference between a Tua-led offense and a Jacoby Brissett-led offense, you clearly have a bias and an agenda against Tua, because Tua, you can say what you want to, whether you think he's the franchise quarterback 1, 2, 5, 10 years down the road. That's not what I'm debating here. I'm not debating the next 10, 15 years of Dolphins quarterbacking. I am debating the month of November, the year of our Lord 2021 quarterbacking. Tua Tagovailoa, even at 75, 80, 65%, gives you more and gives that offense more than Jacoby Brissett does. And that became painstakingly obvious last night. It was so obvious that even Brian Flores realized it, okay? Because Jacoby Brissett, who started the game, comes off with a knee injury in the third quarter after taking a hit, goes into the medical tent. So then Tua, injured finger and all, comes out to take over. And then Jacoby Brissett actually got cleared to return to the game and was ready to trot back onto the field. And Brian Flores waved him off. Flo said no. Flo said, you know what? We're going to keep Tua in. We're going back to Tua. So even Brian Flores came to realize in the heat of the moment that Tua Tagovailoa, with the finger issue, less than 100%, was still giving the Miami Dolphins a better chance to win than Jacoby Brissett. Something that seems so obvious to everybody who watches this team and covers this team. I don't know why it took the head coach longer to figure that out. I do have to give him a certain benefit of the doubt in that, I don't obviously claim to have a better idea how healthy Tua is compared to Flo. I don't have the team doctors on my staff. I don't see Tua every day in practice. So I have to give some benefit of a doubt to Brian Flores on that. Yet at the same time, we've all been clamoring for, wondering why. Hey, if he's healthy enough to go through warmups, he's healthy enough to suit up and be the backup. If he's really your starting quarterback, why aren't you giving him a chance to start if he's healthy enough to play? Because Jacoby Brissett is clearly not it. He is not the answer to anything. Maybe if you were tanking, but why tank when you don't own your own first-round pick anyway? We're rooting for San Francisco to lose, not for the Miami Dolphins to lose this year. So it's bizarre. It's so strange, this Tua saga. But, for a guy who's dealt with a lot, he's had a lot hanging over his head this season, right? Because there's clearly a lack of confidence. I mean, the Dolphins were trying to get Deshaun Watson in. They were trying to get him in by the trade deadline. It didn't work out because of the legal situation. So Tua's had that hanging over his head. Then you have a coach that, and Flores did say, I sometimes have to protect Tua from himself with these injury things because he's tough and he wants to play every game. I mean, Tua, he wanted to play through the rib issues. He didn't want to go on IR. He wanted to play. He's wanted to play through this finger stuff. But again, the rib issue is different. You put him on injured reserve. He wasn't an option. These last two games, Tua has been the backup quarterback. If he's healthy enough to play, in my mind, he's healthy enough to start. And when he did come on and play yesterday, Tua played pretty well. I mean, Tua played incredibly well, especially for a guy who, he doesn't have a very strong arm to begin with. And then if the hand issue, the finger issue did take some velocity and some accuracy away, he did pretty damn well compensating for that. I mean, Tua had the 64-yard completion to Albert Wilson, a busted coverage, yes, still a nice throw and catch. And it's nice to see Albert Wilson turning back the clock to 2018, 2019, whatever. 2018, I think, is when he turned back the clock to. That was the last year under Adam Gase where he had a nice year. So it's nice to see Albert Wilson doing well. And then you've got the chemistry and the rapport between Tua and his old college teammate, Jalen Waddle, who connected for a big 35-yarder. And Tua didn't throw for a touchdown last night, but he did run for one. Got the quarterback sneak, a very important touchdown for the Dolphins in that moment. So I was happy to see him come on and play through some adversity. Let's bring on our very good pal. This guy helps us make money. Everybody who watches this show knows they take your advice, Lee, not my advice. I am the mush. You are an actual winner. How you doing, sir? Lee Sterling from Paramount Sports is with us.
I'm good. and excited about the weekend. A lot of work. I mean, there's like 160 games on Saturday.
Whoa.
So college games, college basketball. So I think there's like 40 or 50 tonight. So a lot of work. I'm up till 1, 2 in the morning every night studying games. But when you're winning, it's fun.
Oh man,
I
have a lot to ask you about, and I know when we're talking betting picks, we tend to look forward, not backwards. But
right.
I do want your thoughts on the Miami Dolphins last night. Was that surprising to you? I mean, the defense played a tremendous game, and they beat the Baltimore Ravens, who were, I think, 8.5-point favorites before kickoff. The Dolphins beat them by 12.
If Tua would have started, I would have had the game bigger, but I thought Miami was going to win. You know what it reminded me of? It reminded me, well, I still think the Dolphins are better than Jacksonville, but it reminded me a little bit of Denver. Remind me of Denver. Even though Denver had won more games than the Dolphins, I just didn't think I thought we were going to play our best game, which defensively we did. Offensively, not so much. I mean, there were still a couple plays, Alex, where literally there were 2 or 3 defenders that were almost untouched running after the quarterback. Yeah. I mean, I can't imagine what goes through their minds. I mean, I played the position, so I never had a line that was even close to this bad. So, I mean, I'll never forget this one time. We were playing Northwest Christian, and the nose tackle played, the name escapes me, played for Miami. He was on the team with really? Jerome Brown. And I'll never forget this. The first play of the game, he literally, my center was big. My center at the time this is 1980. I think he was like 6'2", 245, 250. He jumped over my center and just started chasing me. And he was fast. And so I literally go back to the huddle and I told him, I said, listen, the next time he jumps over you, if you don't put, your helmet and his where, I said, you will never play another snap again. He was a 10th grade center. His first time seeing a kid that was 6'4", 300 pounds. So it was, so it was, the first play of the game even shook me up a little bit, but I didn't want to let him know that. But, the quarterbacks for the Dolphins have had no protection at all. So I think it's if you put Tua on the Chargers, I think you'd think he's a top 10, 12 quarterback in the NFL.
Yeah.
So not a top 5, but a top 10, 12 quarterback. So I thought the defensive effort was great. It reminded me of Denver last week. I thought we were going to see that. And I don't think Baltimore's that good. Who do they have? They have Lamar Jackson. They have Andrews. They have no running backs. Their offensive line isn't good. Brown will tell you he's the best receiver in the NFL, but Marquise probably he's not very good. He's not a number 1, at least. Their defense, they got a couple defensive linemen, and they got Humphreys. That's it. So I was excited to see that, and let's hope we get on a run. And because we don't have our own first-round pick, let's hope we get to 7-7. That's the goal, I think.
I like it. So keeping it local, let's talk about a game that has not happened yet. So we have the opportunity to play some wagers. I live for this, Lee. University of Miami guy, Florida State week. We are less than 24 hours now away from kickoff, 3:30 tomorrow at Doak Campbell Stadium. Miami's been trending a lot better, especially on offense. Defense, still a work in progress. Florida State has had a few ups and downs, but it's mostly been bad this year. Miami beat these guys 52-10 at home last year. So for tomorrow, Lee, obviously I want bragging rights because I have relatives who are Florida State fans and friends. I want to be able to talk shit to them for another year.
Are they distant relatives?
I've got a cousin of mine who's an alum, hardcore Florida State fan, and she went to school there. She's been very quiet the last 4 years because 80% of the time she talks to me is talking trash. Because there was that one stretch where Florida State had won like 7 years in a row against Miami. She was very chatty during that 7-year stretch, very silent over the last 4 years.
So you think you've got it bad. My next door neighbor, I live on the second house from the street. My next door neighbor that's on the street, he has a one of the bricks leading into his house, he's got a Florida State brick in between all his red bricks. And he has a flagpole where he flies an American flag and a Florida State flag. Now, when we beat them probably 8-10 years ago, I did change the flags when he went up for the game and put up a Miami flag for the 2 days until he came home. And behind me, there's a guy named Mike Miranda, plays basketball at my house on Sundays. Great guy. Actually works. I think he works through the University of Miami. He's a physical therapist.
Oh, cool.
He was on the 93 championship team. He was for Florida State. He was on special teams. So I think it's going to be a fun game because we're still not great. I think, you look at the injury to King, we might have struck quarterback gold by having King go down. Mm-hmm. And I still think Garcia is going to be great. I hope he doesn't transfer. I'd love to see the two stay here, but it could happen. So we did see Van Dyke get a little cocky after he threw that touchdown pass to Harley last week. It's like, I'm going to be Dan Marino. I'm just going to fire it in. I can get it into every tight window. Well, he learned a lesson there. So he's still going to learn from some things, but I think Miami's going to score. I think they're going to score on us. Our defense hasn't been great. I mean,
no, they've not.
If we were to lose 2 of the 3 games, Manny Davis would be hailed as the worst defensive coordinator in the country. We gave up 30 points to Georgia Tech. Georgia Tech's awful. But I think we're going to win the game 34-30. I think we have too many weapons, and I like the over. We could see a 38-34 or 44-41 game. I like the over 60.5 also.
I like that too, because you're right. Miami should be able to score relatively easily, even though Florida State's defense is better than they were last year. Right. They're not very good against the pass. I think Miami can exploit them.
They're linebackers. We might have the worst linebackers in the country, and Power 5 football. Mm-hmm. They might have the second worst. But they have no receivers. They've got 2 pretty good running backs. They got no receivers.
Right. Yeah.
I don't think any of the receivers would make our 2 deep. So
I like it. So we like Miami to win a close, high-scoring game. Take the over. What else do you like this weekend, Lee? I mean, you mentioned you got 140 games this weekend. Share some of that knowledge with us, Mike. I don't know if I have time for 140, but share some of those with us.
Okay, I like Ohio State against the Purdue, not Boilermakers, Spoilermakers. They did upset 2 top 5 teams, but they after those games, they did not fare well. In fact, they beat Ohio State in 2018, 49-20. After that game, they lost to Michigan State. This year, after they beat Iowa, they lost to Wisconsin, 30-13. I think they're just happy, just making a bowl. They're Purdue,
Yeah.
Also, they have not faced an offense. Ohio State has 3 receivers that might get picked in the first round. They got a quarterback that's thrown for 400 yards, 3 games. They threw everything but the kitchen sink in that game last week at Michigan State. And I like Ohio State. I think this is going to be my romper room special, 51-20.
Ooh, I'll take it.
Okay. Another game, 20-point spread, Georgia and Tennessee. So a lot of the notes that I have when I'm watching Georgia's defense are you can't go toe-to-toe with them. They're just too physical, too strong, too fast. But you might be able to go up-tempo with that go-go spread that Tennessee runs. Here's something I found. I was looking, I've got all these different stats in front of me. I'm like, I have a feeling Tennessee is really good in the first half or first quarter. They lead the nation in scoring in the first quarter, 15.5 points per game. So if you get up in that game, I think it changes the game. Now, teams have fallen behind 14, 21, 28, nothing. It's game, set, match against them. But if Tennessee is close or has the lead, might see a different ball game. So they played Alabama into the fourth quarter. They have a quarterback that's healthy and is capable in Hendon Hooker. Hooker was banged up a couple weeks ago. I would not have taken him a couple weeks ago, but Stetson Bennett, he looks like a guy that would be like the fraternity president at one of the fraternities in Georgia, right?
So does.
And he's not a guy that can push the ball down the field. So I think Tennessee's the right side here. I don't think let's say Georgia's up by 7 to 10 points late in the third. Do you think he's the quarterback that's going to throw 2 touchdown passes? I don't think so.
No.
So I'll take the Tennessee Volunteers plus the 20 to 20.5. And then I've got a fight for you.
Yes.
All right. So the co-main event, Ben Rothwell and Rodriguez. What's his name?
Is it
Rogerio
de Lima?
De Lima.
Yeah.
So Rothwell, he's been in the UFC since 2009. I knew it'd been a long time, but 2009. He has to cut weight to make the 265 usually.
Yeah.
You don't see that too often. De Lima, he's like a light heavyweight, and he has not fared well against bigger fighters or more skilled fighters. And Rothwell actually pretty nimble for a 265-pound guy. I just think he's going to dominate him, whether it goes to the ground or, it's in stand-up. A lot of people look at De Lima's win over Maurice, the crochet boss, Green, and they'll think, oh, that's an impressive win. I'm not impressed with Green. I think Green is probably going to go back to knitting here where he belongs. The guy's weak. I think Rothwell's going to win 30 to 27, or he might even knock him out. So the line's like minus 150. I think the line's still manageable. Let's go with Ben Rothwell in the co-main event.
I love it. And before we let you run, a couple things before we let you run. Yeah. What's your take on the Duncan Robinson slump with the Miami Heat? Right, because I'm sure you see this a lot when you study teams, 3-point shooter. I'm kind of wondering, because a lot of people are saying this could have something to do with the big contract he signed. I think that might be the case, but not for the reason people think. Because sometimes you see a player sign, a big time contract. In his case, 5 years, $90 million. It's life-changing money. People think that players just stop caring.
Right.
I think it might be the opposite. I think he signed that big deal, and now he feels a lot more pressure to live up to it because he's in his own head, Lee.
That could be part of it. Now, I don't have that problem. I'm such a poor shooter. When I have a court at my house, I'm a career 23% field goal shooter. So
you're actually ahead of Duncan Robinson this season.
But that's shooting threes. I mainly take layups and shots in the lane. So I can't relate to this kind of slump. I'm always in a slump. I will say this. I know a lot about the Heat. Rob Fodor, the shooting coach, is not with him anymore.
Oh.
So I think it was his choice. I think he's living out on the West Coast. He has his own website. I think he's one of the top shooting coaches in the NBA. Maybe they got to get him back. Maybe they got to throw some more money at him. They have some other guys that work with, they've got Quinn and a few other guys that work with the shooters. He's the guy. He's the guru. So I used to have my nephew used to go to Ransom. Actually, probably 15, 20 years ago, he was a coach at Ransom. Then he just started doing shooting on the side. So my nephew, who went to college, was not much of a player. He was the 8th, 9th guy on the Ransom team, used to take shooting lessons a couple times before he was 16. I used to drive him. He lived right around the corner from me. And I'll never forget this. I like to always watch someone. I'm like, wow. I mean, he used to start, it was like a craft. He used to start them off how many steps they would take to go from one side to the other side. Ball placement. I mean, driving out low, making each dribble look like you're driving until, you're going to stand up and shoot. Everything is in. The guy was amazing. So I'm entranced. I'm watching my nephew, who's not very good, take lessons from him. And then as I'm walking out, who walks in? Kyrie Irving. And I'm like,
oh, wow.
I told my nephew, I'm like, I think we're going to stay and watch this lesson.
Yeah.
And then the next person walked in was Tim Hardaway Jr. So this is before he joined the Heat. He had a couple guys that were overseas that I checked out. In high school, they averaged like 15 points a game. Went to a college, would average 10, 12 points a game. They go overseas and average 25, 30 a game.
Oh, my God.
So I think he's the guru. I think he's the guy behind the last 3 or 4 years. Remember, he got these contracts like James Johnson was working with him for a year. And then James Johnson, then he was doing the edible gummies or giving.
Oh no, that was
gummies
the other
to-
one. That was Dion
Yeah.
Waiters doing the edible
Yeah.
gummies.
No,
Yeah.
but I think they came from James Johnson. I think.
Oh, did they?
I think so. Remember, serves me correct. I'm
You
not
might be
positive,
right.
but
No, you might
that's
be
what
right.
I heard. And he worked with he worked with Winslow until Winslow stopped working hard. I heard, and then also, got hurt. So he made all these guys. He worked with Duncan. If you go back, maybe look at some interviews. I think he credited Rob Fodor a lot for his development.
Wow.
So maybe that's a little thing. Ball placement. It could be the way they hold the ball, their way their feet are. It could be something slight. So that might be the reason that more than any of these other things. Maybe there is a little bit of pressure once you sign a contract, but if it's not the pressure, maybe it's also partially not working with Rob Fodor. So he's one of the top, I think, 3 or 4 shooting coaches in the NBA, and right now he's not with the team.
That's a really good scoop. Like honestly, this is some of the best insight we've gotten here on what might be going wrong with Duncan.
Right.
Let the people know, Lee, ParamountSports.com, what they can find there and how they can access it.
Well, you can always call me at the office. If I'm doing an interview, I'll call you right back, usually within 20, 30 minutes. 800-400-9741. I have a special going on. We don't call it November at Paramount Sports. We call it Dovember. So we've got football. Normally it's 3 weeks, and you get everything through the end of the month. Remember, there's Maction going on every Tuesday and Wednesday. We've got a game every single day, I think, except for November 24th. Wow. So we'll give you football, and I'm going to add in basketball, college basketball, NBA, hockey, where I'm number 1 in the world, and UFC, where we won 5 of the last 7 cards. We came close last week. There was one fight where one of our fighters got knocked out after literally scoring everything, hitting. I'm trying to think of the name of the fighter.
It's on the prelims, probably, right?
Hawes. I mean, I think his opponent had landed like one punch until he landed that punch that knocked him out. So if not, we would have had we still had a big card. We went 4-2, but that one loss hurt us. It would have been like because we had some huge odds on a parlay. It would have been a huge win. So they want to get involved. I'm going to give them football, basketball, hockey, and UFC through the end of November. Just $297.
Awesome. I love
ParamountSports.com. Right behind me. You can see
that
the
is
sign.
the spot. I'm still waiting on my tracksuit, by the way.
Yeah. Working on it.
Got
to put in your dues.
I do.
Some guys been here 2-3 years, haven't gotten the tracksuit.
Okay. I'll pay my dues. It's fine. You can haze me if you need to.
And you're what size again?
XL.
XL. And what colors do you like?
Oh, blue. Blue's my go-to. Yeah.
Blue. Okay. Navy blue.
Oh,
like
yeah.
this?
Navy blue.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a solid one.
Okay.
Or
we
what
may not be able to get a Nike for you. We might have to go with an off-brand for you.
I don't even mind. I buy off brands all the time.
Here we go. Mr. Mush. I got to walk around. Me, it's Nike or Adidas, Sorry,
I'll get the Marshalls brand. I don't even care.
All right, buddy.
Thanks so much, Lee Sterling.
Okay.
ParamountSports.com. That is fantastic. Oh man, that was pretty good insight there on Duncan Robinson. The shooting coach could be a factor. I mean, I think I'm sure there are a number of different factors. I still lean to mental being the biggest part of this, but it's no longer funny. It's no longer funny. Branding, Ricky J. Mark says. Did someone say branding? Yeah, I got this buddy of mine who does content creation. He's a soccer host. His name is Richard Carmen. Like he designed his own logo. Like he designed how Tom Brady has a logo, Tiger Woods has a logo, Jordan's got the jump man. Like my buddy Richard has his own professionally designed logo. And I want that. That's the branding that I want. Forget about Nike and Adidas. Maybe Ricky J. Mark can design me something. Might have to get to work on that. How about this? It's funny because Chris Adams is in now on the chat. Hey, Donno was busy, but I'm here. How about that, Vince? Chris, it's you. Do yourself a favor and do me a favor. After this episode is over, if you missed the start of the episode, we went live a little bit late today, later than usual. We usually start at 3. We started a few minutes before 3:30 today because I was at the Miami Crypto Experience downtown. Chris, I literally started the show praising you. So you have to go back and watch the beginning of the episode today. Let me see if I can pull up the message that he wrote. He wrote this before we started, so I guess he wasn't in when we started the show. Chris Adams last night, or during yesterday's show, he wrote me a message that the Dolphins were going to win. He was betting on the Dolphins. He wanted to know if I wanted to buy the Dolphins on the dip with him, like crypto on the dip. I told him he was crazy. I accused him of being on drugs, and it turns out I was crazy. Chris Adams was 1,000% right, man. I just gave you credit again, but I started off the episode today giving you credit. And, when we started our Dolphins rundown at the beginning of the episode, one guy that I didn't mention, because we were talking about defensive players, right? Javon Holland was superb. I thought the rookie safety was the best player on the field yesterday. Javon Holland was fantastic. Jalen Phillips looks menacing now. He is coming around. Andrew Van Ginkel, I thought, had his best game of the season. Xavier Howard scored a freaking touchdown. I mean, Xavier Howard, that was an incredible play when Xavier Howard scored the TD on that scoop and score, because not only did he pick it up and run it in for the touchdown, he's the one who forced the fumble, did everything, forced the fumble, picked it up, ran it in for a touchdown. Later in the game, he also scooped up a ball and ran it into the end zone. It wasn't a fumble. Unfortunately, Lamar Jackson's knees were down, but Xavier Howard, that guy has a nose for the football. He is always around the ball, and if a ball comes loose or if there's a ball in the air hanging for an interception, X is always in the right place at the right time. That's instinct. I don't think you can teach that. Like, he is just a natural ball hawk. He had an incredible game. A guy I hadn't even mentioned yet on this episode. How about the big fella? How about Robert Hunt? The most fun penalty you will ever see. The most fun. Maybe I did mention this at the top of the show, but Robert Hunt, for reasons I can't fully understand, catching that screen pass and then rumbling down to the goal line and acrobatically, about as acrobatic as a 350-pounder or whatever he is can be, like somersaulting, to stretch the ball over and break the plane. Unfortunately, it didn't count because ineligible receiver. Whoops. And I saw this photo today, and man, Manny had to dip out a little bit early. But you guys, it's actually it's the cover of this episode. It's the cover photo for this episode. So if I can't pull it up for you right this second, you will understand. But the Miami Dolphins have already, and they turned this around within 12 hours. It was like immediate. The Miami Dolphins have already put that photo of Robert Hunt, like somersaulting towards the end zone. It's on their elevators at the team facility. The guy's become a legend. Like, Robert Hunt has become a meme, but a good one. Like, they're not laughing at him. They are celebrating the hilarity of an offensive lineman, scoring. I don't care if it was illegal, an offensive lineman scoring a touchdown. It was unbelievable. Take a bow, big fella. That was great. And it's all over the interwebs now. Obviously, if you're a hardcore Miami Dolphin fan, you've known who Robert Hunt is. Ain't nobody outside of the 305-954-561. Nobody outside of our area had any clue who Robert Hunt was, but they know him now. They know him today. Huge shout out to our guy, Devin Jordan. Thank you so much for the super chat donation, sir. If the Dolphins run the table and go on a winning streak, do Flores and Greer come back? I think they would, but I don't expect that to happen. I know that the schedule is easier from here on out than it was to start the year. The defense, if the defense keeps playing the way they've been playing, the Dolphins will be in every game. I find it hard to believe, though, that with that offensive line, which can also unfortunately cause your quarterbacks to get hurt, right? Because we've seen it now a couple of times with Tua. We saw Jacoby Brissett have to leave a game last night behind that O-line, and so much inconsistency on wide receivers staying healthy and showing up, and you have no running game to speak of. If you think the Miami Dolphins are going to run the table, and what would it be, 10 straight victories because they got 7 left? Like, if you really think the Dolphins are going to end the year with that offense, with 10 straight wins, I've got a bridge to sell you in Brooklyn. I find it hard to believe. Their defense looks good enough right now to keep them in every game. They're going to slip up a few times, all right? And out of these 7 remaining games, I think to get to the playoffs, you're going to have to win out because 10-7 is probably going to be the minimum requirement to be a wild card team this year. You're obviously not winning the division. I don't care if Buffalo shit the bed against Jacksonville. Buffalo are going to win the division. So you're fighting for a wild card spot. You would have to be perfect the rest of the way. And even if you do go 10-7, there's not even a guarantee. So, but to answer you asked me a hypothetical. So to answer your hypothetical, yeah, if the Dolphins finish 10-7, including a 9-game winning streak, I got a little ahead of myself with the 10-game winning. If they finish the season on a 9-game winning streak, then yeah, probably everybody saves their job. But if that happened, would you be that upset about it is the thing. Like we all question the job Chris Grier is doing. We all question the job that Brian Flores has done. And like Flores dug himself into such a hole this year, it's hard for him to like win over the fans because you can give him some credit, as I did, for the defense being a lot better the last 3 games. But then you can also ask, why did you go away from the coverages that made you good last year in the first place? Like, why did it take so long to come back to that? Right? So it's like Flores is also hurting himself a little bit by fixing things in the second half of the season. Why didn't you fix them in the first half of the season? And Chris Grier, the same thing. I mean, the class of 2020 still looks bad, but the class of 2021 is balling right now. Javon Holland, balling. Jalen Waddle, balling. Jalen Phillips, balling. So, Liam Eichenberg, not so much, but, he did have a couple of those fumble-saving plays yesterday, diving on those footballs. And, Notre Dame offensive tackles usually end up working out in the long run. So he might end up being a good one. But, I mean, if the Dolphins really did run the table and go 10-7 on a 9-game winning streak, you might be a little bit less vocal about calling for their jobs in the first place. Chris Adams says, I bet on the Dolphins to win every game from now until the bye week. I am done betting against Chris Adams because he showed me something yesterday. Says no one is losing their job, not the GM, not the head coach, not even a bunch of position coaches. Everyone will be here for next year. And from here on out, the trajectory is up for the Fins. At the very least, I think you need, even if you were in this fantasy land we're now stepping into, even if you did run the table, I still think you need to do better at offensive coordinator. Because if you do run the table, it's going to be because of your defense more so than your offense. We need one voice as an offensive coordinator. We don't need the 2.5 coordinators that we have now, and we need to get a real coordinator in here. Devin Jordan says that Robert Hunt touchdown was hilarious. They should have just let it count. I mean, seriously, I understand the rules. Ineligible receiver. He had no business catching that football. They should have made an exception because that was such an epically hilarious play. And by the way, he said he's not saying playoffs to be fair as Chris. I mean, he's saying win through the bye. The bye week, I think, is the weekend of December 11th, 12th. So that would be another 4 games between then? I will entertain that thought. I will allow you to dream a little bit. I will allow that from you. Before we close it up on this episode of Donno Daily here on the 5 Reasons Sports Network, are you getting concerned about the Miami Heat? They fought like hell, but they suffered another loss in Los Angeles, back-to-back nights. It was the Lakers in overtime 2 nights ago, the LA Clippers last night. Another really tough performance from Duncan Robinson. The slump is real. I don't know what the slump buster is going to be. I don't know when the slump buster is going to come into play for Dunk, if he needs to see a sports psychologist or if he just needs to unplug. Maybe take a few games off, although I don't think Spoelstra is ready to do something like that anytime soon with him. But he's got to snap out of this funk because it was funny when the Heat were winning in spite of him. It's not funny anymore when he is contributing to losses, when the margins have thinned out, and Duncan Robinson, the Heat cannot afford a guy in their starting lineup shooting 2 for 13 and 2 for 11 from 3. And cute, he had 9 rebounds last night. Okay, so you can make arguments. Hey, he's improving in certain categories. He's contributing in some other ways. He's not getting paid $90 million to rebound. He's certainly not getting paid $90 million to defend. He's not getting paid $90 million to be on the ball distributing. Duncan Robinson is getting paid $90 million to hit 3-point shots. And if he's not doing that, and if he's a liability because they want him to shoot his way out of his funk, yet the funk is only continuing because they feel like, hey, the only way he's going to snap out of it is if he keeps taking shots Well, if he's not making any of these shots, he is actively hurting this team. He is actively hurting this basketball team right now. And don't panic too much, okay? Because when you hear me say this, I don't want anyone to misunderstand me and leave me these angry comments on YouTube like you guys sometimes do. I don't really care. We talked about this yesterday. I'm not sensitive. If you rip me, if you hit the thumbs down button, I will get over it. I don't want my words to be misunderstood here, okay? From a macro sense, I'm not worried about this team. I'm not worried about this team big picture. I'm not, because they still have some of the best players in this league who have a ton of chemistry and a ton of heart and do things the right way. I'm not worried in a macro sense about a team with Jimmy Butler and Bam Adebayo and Kyle Lowry and Tyler Hero, who for the most part this year has been really, really, really good. And I'm not worried about the coaching on this team. So when I tell you I'm worried about the Miami Heat, I'm not talking about getting into the playoffs. I'm not talking about making a playoff run, because I think this team is built for the playoffs. I think this team is built to make noise in the postseason. And let's not forget, Victor Oladipo is still in cryo sleep. Victor Oladipo is still 500 miles underground in a lab, frozen in carbonite, and the Heat will thaw him out at some point, probably in early 2022, and we'll see what he can add to this mix. And if he can stay healthy, he's going to unlock another gear for this Miami Heat team. So if I tell you I'm worried about the Miami Heat, I'm not worried about March, April, May, and June. Hope we get that far. I'm just talking about right now. I'm talking about winning basketball games. I'm talking about finding the winning chemistry. I'm talking about compiling the best possible seeding in the Eastern Conference, because that's going to be important. And I'm also talking about being entertained, because you know what I don't like? I do not like, as someone who routinely on a normal evening goes to bed at 10:30, 10:45 p.m., when I make an effort, like I have for the last couple of nights, to stay up past 1 a.m. to watch a team defecate on themselves late in these games and lose, that's not fun for me. I want to have fun watching this team. Instead of watching Duncan Robinson go 2 for 13, I want to watch him go 13 for 16. I want to see him unlock that. I want to see this team who didn't have Jimmy Butler the other night. I want to see them win despite not having their MVP candidate. I want to see that, right? So I'm not worried yet about the playoff chase and the playoff run. These problems have to go longer and deeper, and longer losing streaks have to start before I start really hitting the panic button. I did hit the panic button last season when the Heat started to struggle down the stretch. They did make the playoffs last year, but got, swept and embarrassed in the first round by Milwaukee. But no, I'm not hitting the panic button in the big picture, but in the small picture, as a guy who lives and dies with the Miami Heat and the other sports teams that I love, I want to see these guys fix it. I don't want this Duncan Robinson problem to get even deeper and farther than it will. And at this time, I think they're going to keep letting him try to shoot his way out of it. And so every time I watch this team, every time I turn on the TV to watch Heat basketball, whether it's 7:30 start or a 10:30 start, I am rooting for Duncan. I don't want you guys to think I'm rooting against the guy. We've had some fun at his expense the last couple of days because, hey, I referred to Duncan on our episode yesterday as the biggest Heat killer, right? Because when the Heat lost to the Lakers, you lost to Heat killers like Malik Monk, who had a big game, and Wayne Ellington, who had a big game. Avery Bradley had a big game. But the biggest Heat killer has been, during this losing streak and really all season long, has been the guy who wears your own uniform with the number 55. Because he is not pulling his weight right now, and he's certainly not living up to that $90 million contract. Chris Adams, thank you so much for the donation. He says, for the guys in the back, out of the winnings, great show. Love all the hard work. And yeah, when we get these the super chat donations, if you guys are so kind, I funnel those to Manny and Sean. I don't keep any of the super chat money. I want to make sure that our producers are taken care of, and maybe if Manny Chang gets enough of these super chat dollars in his pocket, he can buy some shoes that are not completely hideous. Maybe not. Devin Jordan writes in, maybe it's time to bench Duncan and replace him with Hero. It might reach that point eventually. I know that Spo just hates screwing with his rotation. I mean, if Jimmy is out, then Tyler is usually the guy to replace Jimmy. But when all of the things are equal, Spo does not like to screw up his rotation unless he has to due to injury, and he likes Tyler being the sixth man. So I don't know. I don't know if that's going to happen anytime soon. But if Duncan has 2, 3, 4 more games like these, then you don't rule anything out, because it might get to be so bad that he's just unplayable at a certain point. So I don't know what to tell you, man. But I can tell you a couple things, couple housekeeping items before we head into the weekend officially. For the Hurricanes fans in the chat and watching us, please, guys, check out the newest episode of the Five Rings Canes podcast, because, oftentimes on this show, I don't go as in-depth on the Canes as I do on the Dolphins and on the Miami Heat. Some of that is on purpose. Some of it is just by accident, because when I do roughly an hour a day, I've got a big mouth, and it's hard to cover everything. But I do have a devoted podcast, Larry Bluestein and I, a devoted podcast every week talking Miami Hurricanes football. It's called Five Rings Canes. So go to the Apple Podcast Store, Google Play, Spotify, search Five Rings Canes. Make sure you subscribe, and you're going to get the only preview you need heading into the Florida State game tomorrow, Miami versus Florida State. Make sure you listen to our Five Rings Canes episode on that. And yeah, let's just hope that the Dolphins, the Dolphins already did their job. Let's hope the Hurricanes, the Panthers, the Heat, Canes basketball, who play Saturday against UCF, let's hope these guys can all do their jobs. And I feel like I had something else to say. Well, I always want to direct people to our great sponsors, because these are the folks who make this show possible, who make this who really make this show go. Of course, it's you guys, the viewers and the listeners, but great folks out there like the Quarterdeck Seafood Bar and Neighborhood Grill who sponsor this show. If you haven't tried it yet, I don't know what you're waiting for. It's a great place to watch every game, every pay-per-view fight, and the food is delicious. And the 2-for-1 happy hour, it never ends. And then, guys, if you're looking for a place to bet these games, and most importantly, to rack up some free play money, because you may not realize this, that if you sign up with our code 5RSN125 at BetUS.com, you get a 125% sign-up bonus. That is the best bonus in the industry. If you deposit $100, you get $125 on top of that in free play money. If you deposit $1,000, you get $1,250 in free play money. 125% sign-up bonus. Best bonus in the industry. BetUS is the 3-decade leader. They are known as America's favorite sports book. They have stood the test of time. They've been getting great reviews for almost 30 years now, folks. America's favorite sports book. The customer service is fantastic. It's like having Las Vegas in your pocket. Like, seriously, if you haven't tried BetUS, people often ask me, well, wait, can I really bet all the games there? Yes. In fact, I've got multiple bets on international soccer today during the international break. I bet a lot of NFL, NBA, college football, UFC, etc. on there. You can bet virtually every sporting event on the planet at BetUS, and you can play slots. You can play blackjack. You can play other card games on there. You can bet on the horses. It is like having Las Vegas on your smartphone. It is fantastic. So check it out and use our code 5RSN125 for a 125% sign-up bonus. You bet, you win, you get paid. BetUS.com. I held that note really long because I was trying to find the banner to click. BetUS.com. I was looking through the computer. How do I turn the banner off? All right, guys. I hope everyone has a fantastic, fantastic weekend. I want to throw some shout outs actually before we wrap it up. Chris Adams, thank you so much. Devin Jordan, thank you so much. Both of those gentlemen were nice enough to donate. We love you guys. Ricky J. Mark, my dude. Trevor Gaffney, I love this guy. Peter Della Grazie, a Paisan, I love that. Robert Nolan, Louis Sung Sr., Louis Sung Jr. We had 2 generations of Sungs in here. Our guy David was in the chat. Thank you so much for tuning in. Zachary B, Doug E. Fresh. I didn't see Doug E. Fresh before, so I want to read his message. He says, Donno, maybe Manny's third world melted Build-A-Bear shoes are the Finns' good luck charm. So tell him to slap those elf clogs on every damn week. And by the way, when we're talking about how the Dolphins played last night, how come we just can't have these teams all win at the same time. Like the Dolphins are up and now the Heat are down, and the Panthers lost in a shootout yesterday against Pittsburgh. So it's like the Dolphins are finally winning games, and now the Heat and the Panthers are losing games. Why can't they just all get along and be good at the same time? I think that'll do it for the shout outs. Huge thanks to everybody who made us part of your day today. Have a wonderful weekend. We will talk to you guys again Monday. We'll be back to our normal start time Monday, 3 p.m. right here on Donno Daily on the 5 Reasons Sports Network. Ciao.